So here we are in a late model JK with a L86 LT 8-speed, and this Jeep is a little bit unique because this is our first 17 LT. We're also doing an 18. In 17, GM encrypted the computers and made it a little more difficult to work with a network, but we've got a fully networked L86 LT 8-speed, cruise control, tap shift, the whole 9 yards. Let's check out tap shift here. So if I come back, we're in 6th, 5th, 4th, 5th. You just drop it back into drive. In previous videos, I said we would get into why we do things the way we do, because there's a lot of different ways to get engine performance into a JK. Superchargers, turbochargers, chips, V8s, Hemis, LSs, LTs. You see how easy this LT gets up onto the highway. Maybe 15-20% throttle. And it's just torque that moves you. From the beginning, our goal has been to remain emissions compliant. By staying as true to the original manufacturer as you can, makes it easier to stay emissions compliant. Therefore, we're using factory harnesses, factory computers, modules, calibrations, operating systems. You guys know that spiel. Let's compare the way we do things now and the way we did it in the past and the way maybe others are doing it. In the early days, 8-9 years ago, we had to integrate the LS into the JK and make everything work. And we weren't using CAN technology, we were using discrete technology, analog digital. And it worked, but it was much more complex, much more difficult to install. Today, most of the functions are integrated right through the CAN. So if you take things like coolant temperature, RPM, cruise control, it's all done through a CAN bridge. Basically what that means is there's bidirectional communication between the GM and the Chrysler side, and we're just transmitting CAN packets from one network to the other. So we've reduced the wire count, we've reduced the complexity, we've eliminated modules. The harness can make or break your swap. By using an OE harness, we get essentially the same reliability as an OE vehicle. Now, going a step beyond that, we use OE harnesses, but we're talking about an engine as complex as this one. This is a direct injected, continuous variable valve timing air fuel management engine. We got a lot of circuits, we got a lot of monitoring, we got a lot of things going on, especially on the emissions side, because to keep this thing compliant, all the failure modes, mode 6 data, etc. has to remain intact. Is there anything wrong with hand-built hot rod harnesses? No, especially in an older build. So let's look at the fundamental basics of the swap. We're using a GM engine, a GM transmission, GM harness, GM modules, GM calibrations, GM operating systems. If we compare that to, let's say, some of these hybrids where you're using a Chrysler operating system running a GM engine, essentially what you have is a hybrid, and you're mixing and matching components. Is this emissions legal? Probably not. In addition, you have a host of bespoke and custom components, whether it's electronics or hardware. So by going with an OE harness, what we get is not only the circuits that we need on power and ground distribution, monitoring, etc., but we get OEM quality. There's just too many advantages to running a pure GM powertrain. The US EPA requires it in an engine swap, and as the laws get tighter and tighter on emissions, you're just going to have to move in that direction. In addition, functionality. These engines are now direct injected, so if you try using an older computer or a computer that does not support direct injection, then you're not going to be able to run this LT. In addition, you want to run these newer 8-speeds. The 8L90 is an awesome transmission, so why not use it? So by running a pure GM operating system, now we can do things like run superchargers, 8-speed transmissions, and use all the advantages that GM has built into these high-technology engines. You simply cannot do that with early controllers or cross-manufacturer controllers. By doing the swap this way, we can run LT4s, we can run LT5s, we can run 8-speeds, 10-speeds. We are not limited to old technology engines. Let's talk a little bit about this Jeep. This is a late model JK. I'm not really sure what year it is. I think it's a 16 or something, maybe a 15. It has a 2017 Cadillac Escalade L86 engine and and actually it has a brand new 8L90. This customer chose to go with a new transmission rather than the low mileage transmission. The L86 is not available from GM yet as a full production crate motor. I do believe the L83 is, and as all of you know, the LT1 is also. This is an awesome engine. This is probably one of the most torquey V8s out there. If you look at the torque curve on an L86, it's just amazing. At the end of the day, it's torque that moves your heavy JK. These engines are very mild to drive. They will idle at 500 RPM all day and crawl, but at the same time, they'll run up there with the high-performance crate motors of the LSs and the Hemis. So this is the future, there's no doubt. I personally think the L86 is a little bit too much engine for most JKs. I think the L83 is fine. That's the 5.3 version. You can run them on regular gas. There's really no downside to this motor at this point. We started working with the 14 and 15 6-speed LTs, and we moved into the 8 speeds, and now we're moving into the 17s and the 18s. And what we have noticed is when we first started working with the LSs back in 2007, there were some teething issues with air fuel management, oiling, drivability, transmission issues. By 2009, 2010, GM had that pretty much sorted, and the LSs ran through 14, 15 with very little issue. That's what we're seeing with these LTs. These new 16, 17, 18 engines have proven to be very reliable. The operating systems seem to be very solid. These are some of the best shifting, not only the best shifting LTs that I've driven, but the best shifting vehicles I've driven. It's very responsive. Tap shift mode has RPM match shifting. It's a great combination. In fact, we're going to be hitting the mountain right now with it, and we're going to see how it does off-road with this Atlas 2. We're running an Atlas 2 with a 3-to-1 ratio, which is about as much as you should go, in my opinion, for general wheeling. Because you got to remember, you've got a 4.6 low in this 8L90. That's an awful low first gear when you compare it to the transmissions that are about 3-to-1. So not only do you have this 4.6 low, but you've got tremendous torque. Over 350 foot-pounds of torque right off idle. You also got 2 more firing pulses in this V8. What that means is you're going to end up being in 4 high most of the time, where previously you were in 4 low. So the LT is changing the game. It's bringing power, performance, economy, everything we want in these heavy JKs, with really no downside. The 5.3 engines are economical now. The price has dropped dramatically. The 6.2 engines, the LT1 and the L86, are powerhouses. So here we are off-road with the 2017 Escalade LT L86 8-speed. This is really a nice JK. It's soaking up the bumps pretty good with the RE suspension and the 40-inch tires. This also has a Atlas 2 3-to-1. Do you need an Atlas? Well, it depends. If you need front-wheel drive, 2-wheel drive low, and some of the other modes the 241 does not offer, go for an Atlas. We've got a 2018 L83 Gen 5 LT coming up. We've got a couple of more LT1s coming up. So stay tuned for future videos. Thanks.